Good morning, everyone. So today we're going to be working on gait mechanics, starting from stand, half kneel, shin box to the floor, and then coming back up to stand again. Focusing on foot, working our way up, looking at balance on right side of the body compared to the left side of the body. So let's get started. So we're going to start in the standing position with our crocodile breath, making our nice big C shapes with our hands, thumbs going into that low back musculature, index fingers wrapping around into the abdominal musculature, palms pressing into that side body. And I want to use the hands as a kinesthetic cue for our breath, specifically for our inhale. I want to imagine as we inhale, we want to expand out and away like we're blowing that abdominal wall up like a balloon. And I want to feel that pressure push back into the thumbs, forward into the index fingers, and out through the sides into the palms. And I want to feel that expansion as evenly as possible, just like you were blowing up a balloon. And as we're doing this breath, I want to notice, is there better breath that moves to one side compared to the other side, especially in the low back and into the side body? How does it breathe? How does that breath move on the right side compared to the left side? We're going to get a good 5 to 6 slow, full breaths. Nice inhale. Feel that expansion out and away. On the exhale, we're drawing our navel into our spine and allowing the hands to cinch down to create that resistance for our next inhale. And with each inhale, see if you can expand that balloon a little bit wider, a little bit bigger. As you're breathing, notice if your shoulders are tensing up. On your exhale, allow them to soften and relax. Hopefully at this point you got a pretty good sense and feel for how that breath is opening up. My right side low back is a little less mobile than the left side. For the most part, relatively even. Now we're going to go ahead and grab our staff. We're going to do some balance clock. I'm going to use the staff in case you have any kind of balance or vestibular issues. If balance is not a problem, the staff can be set to the side. We're going to start with a single leg stance. I want to spread the foot really wide, ground evenly through the tripod of the foot, so ball of the big toe, ball of the pinky toe in the heel, and we're going to come into a nice balance. We're going to use the staff only as much as we need to, and from here I want to imagine that we're standing on the face of a clock, and we're going to start to explore the different numbers of the clock. We can start with 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock. The knee, I want it to be as soft as possible. If you have to keep it straight because of imbalance, that's okay, but ultimately I want to be able to get a little bit of softening in that knee, to be able to bend to the knee in order to reach a little bit further in each direction. So we can start with our 12 and 6, then we can move to our 3 and 9, 12 and 6. Man, I need to look at a clock in order to know what I'm talking about here. Working out, maybe I should be thinking of a compass. We're going east, west, north, south. Compass works just as well as a clock. With each one, I'm seeing if I can reach a little bit further in each direction. And the important thing here is maintaining that nice, solid, grounded foot. I don't want that foot moving from bipod to bipod, where the big toe or the pinky toe kind of roll up off the floor. I want a nice, stable foot. We can then start working into our ordinal northwest, southwest, northeast, southeast. As we reach to our outside of the hip. I want that reach to be behind the hip. I'm not as much in favor of this reach in front, although I like to explore all possibilities. But again, with each one, let that knee soften as much as you can to see how big can you make the circle of that clock or compass. And then we're going to move to the other side and do the same thing. Nice spread foot, ground, single leg balance. Make sure first that you have good balance on that foot. And then we can start working our north and south. On my right knee, I have a little bit of sensitivity in that medial compartment of the knee. And this is my knee that I've had 6 surgeries on. And it's not unusual for there to be a little sensitivity. I'd say on a scale of 0 to 10, it's at a 0.5. I just kind of feel it, especially as I get a little bit of valgus knee. And again, we're exploring our north-south, our east-west, and then we can start getting into our ordinal directions, the southwest, southeast, northeast, southwest. My brain is yet to wake up this morning. And as we're going, I want to go ahead and do these a second time on both legs. And this time I really want to get that sense of comparison. How is your balance on your left foot compared to your right foot? And I'm going to go ahead and let the staff go for this one. So if your balance felt pretty good with that first round and you feel comfortable enough to let that staff go, that's good. If you still have balance issues, make sure to keep the staff or something that you can stabilize your body. Everything else is the same though. Tripod foot, maintaining that balance through that foot, going slow, using breath. I want to really pay attention to how far I go, because if I go so far that I lose my balance, that means I'm going too far. I want to maintain perfect stability through the foot that's on the floor. I don't want it to roll around. I don't want to lose my balance where I have to put my other foot down. Obviously, in order to find that edge where you have good control and where we kind of lose control, we sometimes have to take that risk that we might have to set that foot down. But once we get a good idea of where our range is, I want to go slow through each point. And I want to have that sense of comparison so that when we switch to the other side, which foot is the more balanced and stable foot? So as I'm coming to my right foot, already it feels a little more wobbly, not quite as stable as the left. And definitely noticing that sensitivity in the knee is a part of why it feels a little less stable today. Normally my right foot is actually relatively stable, but today, especially as I get right there, I can feel that knee a little bit more, kind of popping up to a level 1. So I want to do some movement to see if I can get some relief in that medial knee compartment. We'll go ahead and grab our staff again. Now we're going to get into some shoulder mobility. So getting a nice shoulder width grip of the staff. I want to imagine we're bending or breaking that staff in 2. And I want that bend to come at the wrist and the elbow, feeling that spiraling action, as well as the shoulder blades. I want to feel the shoulder blades packing down the low back. Really nice engagement through arms and shoulders. From here, we're going to get back into our crocodile breath, breathing into that abdominal wall area. Exhale, drawing navel all the way into the spine. And as you inhale, we're going to start to let the pelvis tilt forward so that we get a little bit of sway in our back. Then on that exhale, as we draw the navel in, we're going to scoop the pelvis. Try to keep the knees actively straight. They don't want to be locked out, but actively straight. As you inhale with the pelvis tilt, that exhale and scoop with active knees, you should start to feel your glutes tighten up a little bit in the rear. On the next inhale, as you get that nice sway in your back, on the exhale, as you're scooping, we're now slowly lifting elbows up, seeing how high can we bring arms, that staff towards our head. Inhale goes back into our sway in the back. Exhale, scoop, and see if you can pull the elbows back a little bit further. I want to make sure that we are not moving into pain. I don't want to force this, and I want to watch out for this rib cage jutting out. So when I'm at the bottom with my arms rested, I got a sway in my back and the ribs out. But as I bring that arm up, I want that rib dropping down. That's the reason I'm scooping actively, because a scooped pelvis is going to pull the ribs down. So I want to have that action of scoop, ribs drawn down, and then how far back do those elbows go? I'm not concerned with pulling the elbows way far back if it means that our rib cage is sticking out. And then from here, we're going to do 10 up to 20 reps. Keeping that active bend in the staff. And see if you can get a little bit more range by squeezing into it on each one. Once you get to 10 or 20 reps, we're going to move the staff to behind the body. Palms are facing backwards. We're continuing to bend that staff away from the body so the elbow pits are still spiraling forward. And notice how that rolls the shoulders down and back and kind of lifts and opens up the chest. From here, we can bend just a little bit at the hips. And we're going to inhale as our arms are at the bottom. Exhale, we're going to lift elbows up towards the ceiling. Inhale, let them soften. Exhale, lift and squeeze. And as we're lifting, we're actively spiraling the elbow pits out and away. I want to continue to feel this active opening up spiral. Feel that lift and open up the chest as you pull the elbows up towards the ceiling. Again, 10 up to 20 slow, easy reps. And then we can flip our palms the opposite direction. Palms are now facing forward, but we're still continuing to bend the staff away from the body. Still having that spiral through the arm, open chest. We can keep our soft bend in our hips. Nice inhale, exhale, lift as we draw our navel into the spine. And again, actively, externally spiraling those elbow pits out and away as you lift. Go soft on these, don't force it, but with each one, we're softly squeezing into that end range a little bit more to see if we can get a little bit more mobility. Notice how left shoulder feels related to the right shoulder. Is one side a little tighter, stiffer, achier on any of the shoulder mobility? Last one we'll do with the shoulders. We're going to get a nice wide grip on the staff. And we're going to see if we can explore all the way through. Now, I don't want to force this. I want to be really slow and smooth and make sure we're paying attention to pain. So, nice wide grip, slowly bringing the arms up. Only going as far as you comfortably can. If this is as far as you can go, you're going to bring it all the way back to your hip. If you are able to bring it further back and bring it all the way through to the back hip, then we'll bring it all the way back. We'll do a good number of these as well. I want this to go through smooth and evenly. I don't want to walk the shoulders through. So I really just want to see how far can you go. If you work on this every day, and if you're not able to go all the way through and you work on this every day, as long as there's not a structural impingement in the shoulder, you should be able to get access of this range of motion over time. If you force it, you're more likely to create pain and injury that will make it harder to get it. So it's better to be soft, safe, and take your time. Let it take days, weeks, or even months if necessary. All right, go ahead and we're going to keep the staff for balance. If you have good sense of balance, we can set the staff off to the side. And we're going to do just a little bit of foot mobility. So we're going to take a nice stride forward. Think gait-wise, how big of a step? Maybe even just a little exaggerated big of a step. From here, I want to feel the ball of the back foot grounded into the floor. I want to feel big toe spread all the way out to pinky toe. We can even we're going to start with letting that heel reach back to the floor. Then we're going to slowly peel the heel up as we plant through the ball of the foot, driving down, trying to push the heel up as high to the ceiling as we can. See if you can feel that kind of stretch at the big toe joint. And then we're going to reach that heel back to the floor. And again, soften the knee, drive down. As I'm doing this, I am keeping that angle through the line of the big toe predominantly. I want to see, how does that big toe feel? Is there a nice stretch? Do you get some stretch into the arch of the foot? And after about 5 to 10 reps, we're going to roll the foot to the outside edge of the foot so that we're more predominantly on the pinky toe side of the foot. Big toe is kind of lightly lifted off. Heel is going to we're doing everything else the same. Heel's reaching back. We're going to soften that knee as we plant into the pinky toe, pressing that heel up. Notice how the knee might track a little bit more to the outside because of the way that we're rolling our foot. Reach that heel back again and then drive through that pinky toe side. Are you getting some stretch into that pinky toe side of the foot? Can you feel it into that lateral outside arch of the foot? Good. Once you get 5 to 10 on that, we're going to switch sides. Taking a nice step forward, maybe a little bit of an overstride. Ground the ball of that back foot. You're going to reach that heel to the floor and then soften that knee as you plant down through the ball of the foot, driving the heel straight up to the ceiling. Inhale as you let that heel reach back, actively straightening the knee. And with each one, again, feel into that big toe area in the medial arch of the foot. My left big toe is a little stiffer than my right big toe. My left foot tends to be a little bit stiffer than my right foot. And again, after 5 to 10 reps, we're going to let that foot roll to the outside edge so that we're more on that pinky toe side, and everything else is the same. Planting through that pinky toe, pushing the heel up to the ceiling, and then reaching that heel back to the floor, actively straightening that knee. How does this side feel compared to the other side? For me, because my big toe is so stiff, I find that I have less connection through the lateral part of my foot. I don't get as much push into my pinky toe on my left side as I do on my right side. And this is a fairly important function in my gait mechanics. So this is something I'm constantly working on, because this is largely my left foot stiff, my left hip is stiff because of the 5 surgeries in my right knee. My left side tends to stabilize for the instability on the right side. Good. All right, we're gonna go ahead and set the staff down, and we're gonna pull out our chair. And we're gonna go through some gait work from the seated position. I wanna start with some simple cat-cows, seated cat-cows. So we're gonna sit up to the front edge of the chair, and we're gonna get back into our breath. Nice inhale into the belly. Exhale, feel that navel draw into your spine. And as we inhale, allow your pelvis to tilt forward, getting us a nice sway in the low back. On the exhale, draw that navel in, and we're scooping the pelvis. Feel that scoop get a little rounding in the low back. Can you feel that stretch? Want to make sure that we're avoiding pain here. So if you have sensitivity in the low back area, this is an important movement to do. As long as we're not moving into pain at a level 3 or above, we need to keep it in that level 1 or 2, slight discomfort, not getting into elevated pain. So I tend to have some back sensitivity. I have a history of getting nerve impingements in my lower back. So flexion tends to get a little stiff. Feels good and juicy, but there's a good stretch in there. Same thing with going into extension. I want to make sure that we're not moving into pain. And we're going to allow the hands to kind of drop down to the side. And we're going to start to add in the hands. As you exhale, drawing that navel in, allow your hands to reach forward. Turn the thumbs down to the floor. Feel that rounding of the upper back. As you inhale, let the hands come down to your side and spiral your palms up towards the ceiling. Feel that chest lift up nice and tall. Getting all the way into that sway in the back. Exhale, scoops, hands reach forward. This is getting into a nice seated cat-cow. Let your eyes stay fixed on a point straight out in front of you, to the computer, to the monitor, or to a wall. Instead of letting your head drop and lift, keep the head in one position and let your spine move around that fixed head. With each one, see if you can get fuller and fuller into the end range of that position without moving into pain. Opened up in our cow, the more you spiral externally through the palms and the elbows, you should feel a little bit more opening and lift through the chest. As you exhale and spiral thumbs down internally and reach forward, you should get some nice big stretch across the upper back and down into the lower back with that scoop. All right, so now we're going to change our position on the chair into a side sit. So I got the back of the chair towards my left side. I want to see if we can have that knee as close to directly under the hip as possible, and the back toe is tucked. I want to try to avoid having that foot laying out extended. I want to tuck that big toe, and I want to feel that big toe grounded and loaded into the floor as if we're going to spring up out of this position at any moment. From here, we're going to get back into our breath. Breathing into our belly, allow that pelvis to tilt forward. Exhale, we're drawing navel into our spine, and we're going to get a little scoop of our pelvis. But since we're loaded into that big toe, as we scoop, we should feel that quad, that front of the muscle of the thigh, kind of get a little, light up a little bit. Inhale, lets that pelvis tilt. Exhale, scoop. Feel the load in the big toe. Feel the load in the quad. Can you feel some stretch in the front of the hip? We'll get a good 5 up to 10 reps. You may notice that you get a little burn in the quad if this is something that's relatively new. We're then going to switch sides of the chair. Again, locking in that back big toe. Knee is as close to underneath the hip as possible. Nice inhale into our belly, getting that sway in the back. Letting the pelvis tilt forward. Exhale, drawing navel in. Feel that scoop. Feel it load into the ball of the big toe and into the quad. And with each one, see if you can feel that scoop a little bit more. Can you feel that stretch up to the front of the hip? So my big toe on this side, stiffer. Definitely feel it. And I feel the difference in my mobility in the front of this hip. Although as I do a few reps, it seems to get a little bit better. We're going to go ahead and switch back to the other side. At this point, I'm going to change the position of my chair. So I'm in that same side straddle position. Knee is still directly under the hip. And now we're going to, continuing with our inhale. Inhale, I want to feel that hip that's off the chair. I want to feel it lift up to the ceiling. On the exhale, we're going to reach down towards the floor. Again, I want that big toe loaded on this as well. So inhale, lift, exhale, reaching down. Can you feel some stretch or lengthening in that side body space? Let that hip lift up on the inhale. Exhale, nice, smooth reach down. On the next one, as we're doing this, we're going to add another layer to it. So we're going to take that same side arm. Inhale as that hip lifts. Our shoulders kind of dropping towards that hip. So I want to get short between hip and shoulder. And then as we exhale, reaching that knee down, we're going to reach up our arm as high as we can. We're trying to get shoulder elevated, hip dropping at the same time. Inhale, brings it all back together. Exhale, nice long reach. What I want to try to avoid on this is my opposite shoulder. I don't want to get a lot of side bend. There's going to be a little bit naturally. It's naturally going to drop a little lower than the shoulder that you're elevating, but I want to avoid excessive reach. I don't want to collapse on the opposite side of the body. I want to try to maintain the space on the opposite side as we're getting long on the side that we're reaching with. And then we're going to switch and do the same thing on the other side. So starting with that nice inhale, letting the hip lift. Exhale, reaching that hip to the floor. Notice if this side feels different. Does that hip reach as far, or is it a little tighter and stiffer? Are you able to feel that length in that side body space? Is it a little bit more stretch or is it less of a stretch on this side? For me right now, I feel a little bit more of a stretch, which is usually on my right side, so it's a little interesting what I'm feeling on this left side today. And once we get a good 5 reps in, we can add in the reach with the shoulder. So inhale, letting the shoulder drop as the hip raises. Exhale, hip drops as the shoulder raises. And again, with each one, we're seeing if we can reach a little lower and a little higher at the same time. But we're trying to avoid getting a lot of drop in that opposite side shoulder. Again, I don't want it drop that shoulder in order to try to reach higher. I want to keep this shoulder at the same level. We're simply getting longer on one side. And again, this side feels get a little bit more stretch than I normally do. I'm going to go ahead and grab the staff real quick. We're going to switch back to the other side. We're still in our side straddle on the chair, but now I'm going to add in the staff. So with the staff, I want to bring arms. We're going to bring hands to each top of the shoulder and let the elbows lift up. So let me show this without the staff. So I'm crossing arms across my chest and shoulder. Each hand is on the opposite shoulder. And I'm going to elevate those elbows. And I want to have the staff resting across the very front edge of our shoulders, really kind of across the deltoids. Hands get to go on top of the staff to hold it in place. And the reason I have the staff here is this is going to help keep the shoulders square, and I want to rotate our shoulders evenly. So we're going to get into some rotation here. So we're going to get a nice inhale into our belly, allow that pelvis to tilt forward. On the exhale, we're drawing navel into spine and we're scooping. And as we scoop and get that hip locked in, we're then applying a rotation towards the back of the chair, only going as far as you can comfortably go. Inhale brings us back forward, fills up the belly, nice sway in the low back. Exhale, navel comes into spine, feel that load of the quad as you then rotate towards the back of the chair. And right now, I'm allowing my head to turn with the staff. Again, I want to hold that staff in place, so I'm making sure that my shoulders are moving together. And I want to really squeeze into this at the end range and see if you can feel some core activation. Once we get to 5, I now want to fix my eyes forward onto a point on the horizon, either on the wall or at the computer. And as you turn, keep your eyes fixed as you rotate. Notice if that changes what you feel as far as a stretch. Maybe it made it easier, or maybe it increased it in a certain area of the body. And that's going to be something worth paying attention to, especially if it's different on the other side. And then we'll switch sides and we're going to do the exact same thing. So getting into our comfortable side position, arms are coming up with the staff across the top of the shoulder. Big toe is locked and loaded. Nice inhale into our belly, getting a sway in the back. Exhale, draws navel in. As we scoop, feel that load in the front of the hip. And then nice rotation. How much different does this side feel compared to the other side? I'm feeling my left big toe, that stiffness in it. Although it's feeling like it might be getting a little bit more mobile as I go. Other than that, I actually feel like I have more mobility in this direction. Once we get to 5 reps, allowing our head to turn with, we're going to fix our eyes on the horizon and do the rotation without our head moving. Again, notice the difference. Did that elicit a change in where you are feeling the stretch? Other things to kind of notice with doing the chair mobility work. How difficult is it to balance on one side compared to the other? Some people may feel like they got to grab the back of that chair on one side. And that's going to be a sign of some core instability. That's part of what we're working on the chair, is actually building some core stability related to certain positions. So this can be a really, really powerful exercise on the chair. We're going to go ahead and set the chair off to the side, and now we're going to get all the way down to the floor. And we're going to get into our shin box position. So I'm in my left side shin box, left palm is down. I want to spiral that elbow out and away. Feel that shoulder blade packed down and back, nice tall lifted chest. We're going to focus on the back hip first. Inhale, allowing that hip to drop to the floor. Exhale, we're scooping it as we lift it off the floor and roll it over the top of the opposite hip. The scoop here is the same scoop we were doing in the chair. So I want to feel that same active scoop of the pelvis. See if you can feel that stretch through the front of the hip. Inhale, we're seeing how close can we get to the floor. Exhale, how much of a scoop can you get? And this one's an important one that we're going to use to compare to the other side. And again, 5 up to 10 reps on this. With each one, try to scoop into it a little bit more. Notice the more we get into hip extension, the more we're going to feel that glute tighten up. And I want to give one little thing that a lot of people tend to add to this. As we scoop, I want to avoid reaching with my rib and turning the shoulder. I want to isolate just the hip. I don't want to move above the hip. If I'm getting a lot of this action above the hip, I'm probably not actually getting the scoop at the pelvis itself. This is a way that our bodies kind of fool us. So pay attention to that rib. It's that same rib flare issue that we have with the staff. I want to be able to get that scoop, maintaining that position of the rib. The more you're able to do that, the more you're going to feel the front of that hip. You're going to feel that glute engage. We'll go ahead and switch to the other side. Get a nice grounded palm. Spiral that elbow out and away. Pack shoulder. Inhale. We're focusing on that back hip, letting it drop. Exhale, lift and scoop it forward. And this is where that tightness in my left hip, left foot, left hip, this is the area where my left side compensates tremendously for the instability of the right side. So I have a decent amount less range of motion currently on this left hip. So I'm going a little bit slower with it. Seeing if I can squeeze into each range without forcing it. And seeing if it will slowly kind of open up with each rep. Then we're going to go back to the first side. We're going to do the same thing, and now we're going to add in our rotation. So nice inhale, let that hip drop. Exhale as we scoop, and now taking that same side hand and reaching through the knee as if you're trying to share bread with someone. Inhale brings it all the way back. Feel that hip drop all the way to the floor. Exhale, lock that hip in first. And then add the reach and the rotation. I want to maintain that locked hip. If we lose that locked hip, I can reach further, but I'm not getting that stretch through the anterior hip. So I want to lock that hip, make sure it's locked. That hip is going to restrict how far you're able to reach. That's a good thing. I want to play with that stretch, a tug, associated to the hip. And again, I don't want that rib jutting out because that's where I can get a whole lot more mobility, but I'm no longer moving at my hip. And we'll come across to the other side and do the same thing. So good grounded palm. Inhale, letting that hip drop. Exhale, scoops it forward, and then reaching through the knee. And just from coming back to this side again, I got a little bit more mobility dropping it, a little bit more mobility on the extension, still tighter than the other side, which is that's pretty much always the case. What I get to work with is not so much bringing these back into perfect balance, but getting them as close as possible. Because the alternative is this hip gets completely locked down and creates a lot of havoc in my body. So I'm trying to work to get as much function back, knowing that there's true instability. I'm going to be limited on how much function I'm actually able to regain. But I can regain a tremendous amount of function on a day-to-day basis. And if I don't do this every day, I will lose a tremendous amount of function on a day-to-day basis. Coming back to the first side, we're now going to get into our folds. Reaching through the shin, I want to keep the shoulders as square to the shin as possible. To start with, reaching evenly with both hands through that shin. If one hand is reaching further, that is usually an indication of some low back tightness that's preventing you from remaining perfectly square. I want to see how square can we reach. Inhale brings it all the way back. Nice inhale and then exhale as we reach. And I want to keep that back hip included on this. So on our inhale, as we come back, allow that back hip to drop to the floor. On the exhale, we're going to scoop first, lock in that back hip, and then add our fold. That should get a little bit of mobility stretch in that back hip with the mobility stretch in the front hip, which is a good combination because these are areas of the body that are paired together when it comes to our gait. They need to be able to be mobile together. Once we get 5 up to 10 reps, we'll switch to the other side, doing the same thing. So again, using that shin, shoulders are square. Nice inhale at the top, exhale, reaching both hands as even as possible. This side is significantly tighter and stiffer. Inhale. Let that back hip drop. Exhale, scoop it forward, and then add our reach. Again, I want to lock that back hip in first so that we get that mobility stretch at the same time. So this front hip on my left side and my right glute are both tighter than the other side. They're tighter independently. This is tighter than the right side. My right glute is tighter than my left side. But more importantly, they are paired together. They are tight together, and this is a function of gait. And this is going to be an issue of having instability in my right knee. This hip stays tight in order to protect me from overloading my right knee in my gait, which again is going to be a constant issue because I lack a ligament in the knee. I have true instability. There's not anything I can do to change that. Once we get 5 to 10 reps, we're now going to start to move side to side. So we can start to transition, use our transition options of either our windshield wiper, moving through our hands, keeping feet in contact with the floor as we go from one side to the other side, or we can do our thread through. In the thread through, I'm lifting the back leg, spiraling it around, threading it through the front leg, then the front leg lifts and spirals around into the opposite side shin box. That gives me access to my fold, and I can come back and do the same thing. Both of those transitions are great mobility drills. I personally like the thread through. I like them both. It depends on where I'm at. Today I'm doing the thread through. By going side to side, we're really able to have that sense of comparison. How does the right side feel compared to the left side? In what ways does it feel different? At this point, we've already probably established a few ways in which there are differences between right side and left side. I also want to start to open up our what we're doing in our shin box. I'm going to be less concerned about staying in the squareness of our shin. We can now start to explore through the knee. We can explore beyond the knee. We can push against the grain. As long as we're not moving into pain, all of these ranges are good and worth exploring. The more you explore outside of your normal angles, as long as it's not painful, the better. And now as we're getting a good number of reps in our shin box, I want to start to open up our shin box. Let that back leg slide open a little bit more. This is going to give you a little bit more mobility work into that back hip. We're going to slowly slide closer and closer into what we would consider a yoga class pigeon pose. With each one, letting that leg slide a little further back until you get to your end range, wherever that end range is. If you're able to do a yoga class pigeon pose, then great. Get into that end range of that pose. If not, I want you to work towards the pose, but I don't want you to force it. I want you to work up to where your range of motion is comfortable, not stressful, not painful. We'll get one more round of each one. Nice long reach with a nice long smooth exhale. Inhale to the other side, doing the same thing. Getting into that nice long reach with a smooth exhale. All right, so now we're going to move all the way to our back. Arms are going to go straight out to the side with the palms up. We're going to lift feet off the floor. Knees are going to be a little bit less than 90 degrees. Hips are less than 90. Knees are around 90 degrees. With our arms out, palms up, this is where I want to imagine we're laying in a bed of sand. And I want to make a nice imprint of our upper body in that sand. Taking a nice inhale into our belly. On the exhale, we're allowing our hips to roll, only going so far. I want to make sure we're only going far enough that we can keep both shoulders and arms engaged in our bed of sand. I don't want to smear the imprint of our body in the sand. So I want to make sure that we are really locked and loaded into the upper body. Keep the movement of the hips small to start with. We're inhaling at the center, we're exhaling as we rotate. As you find your range of motion that you're able to maintain your imprint, then you can start to try to squeeze a little further. But really keep those shoulders engaged with the floor. Don't let them lift up. This will take posterior core activation in order to Keep the shoulders and the arms glued down. And I'm not as concerned with how far you go. You may barely able to teeter one side to the other. This again is one of those movements that the more you do it, the better, as long as it's not painful. And over time, your body will give you more access to greater range. And eventually you'll be able to get to where you're largely able to bring both knees to the floor without your shoulder lifting up. Good. We'll go ahead and let feet come down to the floor. We're going to let the legs go nice and straight. We're going to bring one foot flat, and then we're going to bring that foot out to 45 degrees from the midline of the body. That foot I want to be perfectly flat, so I'm going to change my position. So as I bring my foot flat, I'm bringing it out to 45 degrees, and I want to maintain a perfect tripod foot. Ball of the big toe, ball of the pinky toe, and heel. Knee placement's going to be important here. If that knee turns in, it's going to pick the pinky toe up off the floor. If that knee turns out, it's going to pick the big toe up off the floor. So I want a nice grounded flat foot. From here, we're going to push in down through our knee, driving into that flat foot, and feel that hip scoop up towards the ceiling. Can you feel that glute active? Inhale, we're letting the hip back down. Exhale, scoop as you drive. Opposite leg should be completely soft. Opposite hip should be resting on the floor. We're rolling over that hip. There is no activation in that opposite hip at all. We're focusing on just one side. Inhale, brings that hip down. Exhale, scoops all the way up, high as you can. Feel that through the front of the hip. Now, just like with our shin box scoops, we can exaggerate this by reaching with our rib, which will take away from our mobility of the hip. So I want shoulders and upper body and ribs to be soft and relaxed. We're reaching only from our scoop of the pelvis by driving down. I'm not reaching with my upper body. So if you notice that rib wanting to flare, see if you can figure out how to soften it and only move through the lower body. As you scoop, locking it in, you should start to feel that glute tighten up, because what we're getting here is hip extension, and by definition, hip extension, full hip extension means full glute contraction. So the more that you're getting into this, the more you're going to feel that glute fire up and contract. And I want to squeeze into that glute. I want to get that contraction. We're going to then switch and do the same thing on the other side. So again, foot comes flat, moves out to 45 degrees of the midline of the body. Spread that foot out, grounded down, driving into that foot as we scoop the tailbone up to the ceiling and feeling for that stretch in the front of the hip. Inhale as we go down. Exhale as we drive up to the ceiling. And again, opposite hip, opposite leg should be completely soft. Hip should stay on the ground. There should be no physical activity on that other side other than just rest. We're only getting movement through one side from the hip down to the foot. I don't want to have excess movement up above where that rib is rolling off the floor as well. All we have is that scoop, extension. Can you feel that glute firing up? This one's getting into that left hip really good right now. So we're going to switch back to the other side. We're going to do another round of these. On this round, we're going to do 5 just with our hip. What I want to pay attention to now is which foot feels more grounded. Does one knee feel a little bit shaky? So again, nice flat foot, grounded, scooping up. Can you feel that glute engagement? How solid does that foot feel? Is the knee wobbly, shaky? Do you feel nice connection through your hip down into your foot? We're going to do 5 of these on this side, and we're going to add another layer to it. So keep in mind what that foot and that knee feels like. And then we're going to bring our opposite arm overhead. And now as we scoop, we're going to reach across. So I'm pushing through my right foot. I'm reaching across with my right hand. I want to reach through my chest. As I exhale, inhale as we're bringing it all the way back, letting the hip come to the floor. Then driving through that foot. Scoop, lock that hip in. Keep that hip locked in as you reach across the body. I want to continue to drive down through that foot as I'm reaching away. It's going to feel counterintuitive because that reach feels like it wants to lift that foot or let that knee cave in. But I want to really double down on my foot. As I'm reaching, I want to press even harder, driving through that knee into the floor. Good. And then we'll switch to the other side. So again, we're starting with just the drive of the foot. Foot's out to 45 degrees. Driving down through that foot. Scoop the hip up to the ceiling. Feel that stretch on the front of the hip. Now we're noticing, how does this foot feel grounded and stable? Are we able to get the same amount of drive through the hip? Does that knee wobble? More or less on this side compared to the other side. I want to pay attention to the instability of the foot, the wobble of the knee, because that's going to be an indication of some glute instability, that we have some glute inhibition, that glute's not firing up fully. And if that's the case, then this is a drill that I want to do every day. And possibly multiple times a day, just to develop that neurological activation of the glute. Once we get to 5, we're allowing that opposite hand to reach overhead, ground through that foot, scoop up, and then we're adding in our reach. But of course, our reach does not take away from that grounded foot. Inhale brings it all the way back. Exhale, nice scoop as we reach and rotate. And remember, as you reach, you want to continue to press even harder through that grounded foot. This will get that nice ringing out of the spine. All right, so now we're going to slowly come back up to our feet. Take your time, make sure we're not dizzy, lightheaded. So once we get to a sit or a kneel, kind of take a moment before we come up to stand. And we can also have our staff. We're going to do another round of our balance clock to finish. So if you needed the staff to do the balance clock at the beginning, make sure you have it in hand now. But everything will be the same as our start. Nice spread, grounded tripod foot coming into our single leg stance. And now we're going to explore our compass. Moving north and south. We got our east and our west. Again, reaching behind the hip on that as we reach across. How much can you feel the softening of your knee in order to add more length? And I really like to reach and extend through the toes, almost like I'm trying to grow my toenails a little further in order to get that last little bit of reach. How far can we go? Then we can go in our ordinal directions. Playing with all the different angles of the compass. How does it feel compared to the beginning of the class? We've done a lot of work. You may find that you're a little neurologically fatigued, so it might feel kind of shakier than it did. Is it shaky up above because the muscles just feel like they've been worked? Or do you feel unstable at the foot itself? We'll go ahead and switch to the other side. Same thing, nice spread, grounded foot, single leg stance, and then slowly working forward and backwards. My right foot feels a little bit more stable. Actually feels considerably more stable. Still got a little sensitivity in that knee. So got a little bit more work I can do there. But stability-wise, foot feels much more engaged. I feel like I got more engagement through my glute, and so my foot also feels more connected to the floor. Start working in those ordinal directions as well. One of the things I like about doing this kind of movement early in the day is if you notice that there was more instability on one side than the other side, and it just improved, that means it's improved for the day that you have going forward. How you move, how you walk through your day, you're going to have a little bit more stability than you did when you woke up. And if we didn't apply movement the way we did, then that instability would be what you're walking with. Every step would be a little less stable on one foot compared to the other. So adding these in early into the day, I think, is paramount to having better outcomes in our movement. Let's go ahead and finish with some balance, or some crocodile breath. Thumbs in the back, index fingers in the rear. Getting that nice grip through in order to create resistance for our inhale breath. Let's see how much can we inflate that balloon. Again, notice that inhale, if you feel tension moving into the shoulders and the neck. On the exhale, allow the shoulders and the neck to soften and relax. And with each inhale, how much can you feel that expansion of that balloon? Once you get a good 5 to 6 breaths, go ahead and drop arms down to the side. We'll get a few more breaths, but this time allow that breath to move up into the chest, ribs, upper back, shoulders and neck. Feel that breath come in and allow that shrug on the inhale, and on the exhale, allow the shrug to drop. On the inhale, we're breathing into tension, and on the exhale, we're letting that tension rinse off our body down to the floor.